Hello everyone and welcome to Historia Mundi. And welcome to the beginning of this series of videos where we are going to be looking at the 100 most deadliest battles in history. While doing the research, I came across to some interesting battles that not a lot of people are talking about. Each video will feature 5 battles and we will go from the lowest number of casualties to the highest. All of these battles are from different parts of the world and different ages. So, in this journey you can expect battles from the times of Alexander the Great until now. But I will say that I won't be featuring any battle that happened during this decade. Also, as a small detail, some battles happened a long time ago, so it's hard to find an exact number of the casualties. So, without further ado, let's begin. In the early 13th century, the Mongol Empire seemed unstoppable. City after city fell to Genghis Khan's armies, and entire kingdoms collapsed under their speed and brutality. But in 1221, something unexpected happened. In the mountains of modern-day Afghanistan, a Muslim commander named Jalal ad-Din Minburnu did what almost no one else could do at the time. He defeated a Mongol army in open battle. This was the Battle of Parwan, one of the Mongols' rare early defeats, and a moment that shocked the medieval world. To understand Parwan, we need to look at the larger conflict. The Mongols were invading the Khwarezmian Empire, a powerful state stretching across Central Asia and Persia. Genghis Khan launched the invasion after Khwarezmian officials executed Mongol envoys, an unforgivable insult. By 1220, Mongol armies had destroyed major cities like Bukhara and Samarkand. The Khwarezmian Shah fled and soon died, leaving his son Jalal ad-Din as the last serious resistance leader. Unlike his father, Jalal ad-Din was brave, aggressive, and determined to fight. Jalal ad-Din gathered what forces he could: Turkic soldiers, Persian troops, and Afghan warriors, and moved into the mountainous region near Parwan, northeast of modern Kabul. Genghis Khan sent a Mongol army under the inexperienced general Jigi Kutuku, Genghis Khan's adopted son, confident that another victory was guaranteed. The Mongols expected the usual success: fast cavalry, encirclement, and panic. But Parwan will be different. The Battle of Parwan took place in rough, mountainous terrain, which immediately neutralized one of the Mongols' greatest advantages: their mobility. Instead of open plains, the Mongol cavalry was forced into narrow valleys and uneven ground. Jalal ad-Din positioned his infantry and archers carefully, using the high ground. His troops fought mostly on foot, forming tight defensive formations. When the Mongols attacked, they were met with heavy arrow fire and stubborn resistance. At one point, the Mongols attempted a psychological tactic. They placed dummy soldiers on spare horses to make their army appear larger. But Jalal ad-Din's men quickly realized the trick. The fighting was intense and brutal. Unlike many previous battles, the Khwarezmian forces did not break. Eventually, the Mongol army suffered heavy losses and was forced to retreat. Against all expectations, the Mongols had been defeated. The Battle of Parwan was significant for several reasons. First, it proved that the Mongols could be beaten, especially when the night favored terrain. Second, it made Jalal ad-Din a symbol of resistance across the Islamic world. Warriors flocked to his banner, inspired by the victory. And finally, it enraged Genghis Khan himself. This defeat was not forgotten. Unfortunately for Jalal ad-Din, the victory at Parwan did not lead to lasting success. After the battle, his army fell into internal disputes over loot, causing many soldiers to desert. Genghis Khan personally led a massive force in pursuit. Later, in 1221, Jalal ad-Din would suffer a crushing defeat at the Battle of the Indus, where he faithfully escaped by leaping his horse into the river. The Mongol conquest continued, but Parwan remained a rare and important setback. What if I told you that one battle changed how the world saw Rome forever? In the year 260, the Roman Empire, once unstoppable, suffered one of the most humiliating defeats in its long history. For the first and only time, a Roman emperor was captured alive by a foreign enemy. This moment happened at a place called Edessa, and the consequences shook the ancient world. By the mid-3rd century, Rome was in serious trouble. This period is known as the crisis of the 3rd century. The empire was dealing with invasions, civil wars, economic collapse, and deadly plagues, all at the same time. On Rome's eastern border was a powerful new enemy, the Sasanian Empire of Persia. Unlike Rome's earlier eastern rivals, the Sasanian were organized, ambitious, and led by a strong ruler named Shapur I. Rome's emperor at the time was Valerian. He took personal command of the eastern army, hoping to stop Shapur and restore Roman strength. Valerian gathered a large force and marched toward the city of Edessa, located in modern-day Turkey. On paper, the Romans had the advantage. They had experienced legions and centuries of military tradition. But in reality, things were falling apart. Valerian's army was weakened by plague, supply shortages, and exhaustion. Many soldiers were sick, and morale was low. Meanwhile, Shapur's forces were strong, mobile, and well coordinated, using cavalry and archers to great effect. Edessa became the key location. The Romans either camped near or were trapped around the city, while the Persian army surrounded them. What exactly happened at Edessa is still debated, but the outcome is clear. The Roman army was defeated, whether through battle, negotiation gone wrong, or betrayal. Emperor Valerian ended up face to face with Shapur I and was taken prisoner. This was unprecedented. Roman emperors were supposed to die in battle, be assassinated, or commit suicide, not be captured. According to Persian accounts, Shapur treated Valerian as a symbol of Persian dominance. Roman sources later described the event as deeply shameful, and some stories, possibly exaggerated, were meant to show just how far Rome had fallen. The consequences were massive. With Valerian capture, Rome was suddenly leaderless in the east. Persian forces raided Roman territory freely, capturing cities and spreading chaos. Valerian's son, Gallienus, was left to rule alone. While often criticized, Gallienus actually managed to stabilize the empire and begin important military reforms. For Persia, Edessa was a huge propaganda victory. Shapur I even carved inscriptions and reliefs celebrating his triumph over Rome, showing the emperor kneeling before him. For Rome, the battle shattered the myth of Roman invincibility. The Battle of Edessa wasn't just a military defeat, it was a psychological one. It showed that Rome could lose, badly, and that even an emperor was not untouchable. This moment symbolized the depth of Rome's crisis and forced the empire to change how it fought wars and chose leaders. In the end, Rome survived, but after Edessa, it was never quite the same. In 636, two empires clashed on the banks of a small river in Syria. One was the ancient Byzantine Empire, the other a rising power, the Rashidun Caliphate. What happened here would apparently change the Middle East. This was the Battle of the Yarmouk. Leading the Muslim forces was Khalid ibn al-Walid, the Sword of Allah. A master of speed and maneuver, Khalid had already won multiple major victories. Now, he faced his greatest challenge yet. The Byzantines fielded up to 100,000 troops, heavy infantry, cavalry, and elite units. Khalid commanded only around 30,000 soldiers. Outnumbered more than 3 to 1, but Khalid had a plan. Fighting began in August 636, in rough terrain near the Yarmouk River. Instead of one massive clash, the battle dragged on for 6 days. Khalid divided his forces into highly mobile units, launching sudden attacks, feigned retreats, and rapid counterstrikes. The Byzantine formation struggled to keep up. Their size slowed them down. Khalid's army stayed flexible and dangerous. On the final day, Khalid launched a coordinated assault. Muslim cavalry slammed into the Byzantine flanks, pushing them towards the ravines of the Yarmouk. The retreat turned into chaos. The Byzantine army collapsed. Byzantine losses were devastating, tens of thousands killed. Their army in Syria was effectively destroyed. The region was lost. Yarmouk opened the door to the Muslim conquest of the Levant, including Jerusalem. It cemented Khalid ibn al-Walid's place as one of history's greatest generals, and it marked a turning point that reshaped the Middle East forever. By 479 BC, the Persian invasion of Greece was collapsing. Just weeks after their defeat at Plataea, Persian forces still lingered in the Aegean, but morale was shattered. Now on the western coast of Asia Minor, the Greeks were ready to strike again. This was the Battle of Mycale. For nearly a decade, the Persian Empire, led by Xerxes I, had threatened Greek independence. But unity had changed everything. Athens, Sparta, and their allies had joined forces, pushing the Persians back on land and sea. With Plataea won, the Greeks crossed the Aegean, targeting the Persian base at Mycale in modern-day Turkey. If the Persians lost here, their war in Greece would be over. The Greeks assembled a massive coalition, possibly over 100,000 soldiers, drawn from Athens, Sparta, and allied city-states. Opposing them was a Persian force of 60,000 to 100,000 troops, including Persian infantry and Greek mercenaries. The Greek coalition was led by Leotychidas, the Spartan king. Both sides knew this battle would decide the war. As fighting began, Greek hoplites charged forward in tight phalanx formations. Heavily armored and disciplined, they smashed into the lighter Persian troops, who were unprepared for sustained close combat. Greek unity proved decisive. Persian lines buckled, then collapsed. At the same time, Greek naval forces, led largely by Athens, attacked the nearby Persian fleet, destroying any chance of escape. The Persian army broke and fled. The victory at Mycale was complete. Persian control in the Aegean evaporated almost overnight. Combined with Plataea, Mycale marked the final collapse of the Persian invasion of Greece. The threat was gone, for good. After Mycale, Greek city-states formed the Delian League, led by Athens. This alliance will soon turn Athens into the dominant naval power of the Mediterranean. Persia remained a vast empire, but it will never again seriously threaten Greece. The Battle of Mycale is often overshadowed, but its impact was enormous. It proved that Greek unity could defeat even the greatest empire on earth, and it helped lay the foundations for Greek culture, politics, and ideas that will shape Western civilization for centuries. From June 1864 to April 1865, one city became the breaking point of the American Civil War. Just south of Richmond, Union and Confederate armies locked into a brutal struggle that would last nearly 10 months. This wasn't a single battle, it was a slow, grinding siege. This was the Siege of Petersburg. By mid-1864, the war had dragged on for 3 exhausting years. Union General Ulysses S. Grant, newly appointed commander of all Union armies, had one clear goal: destroy Robert E. Lee's army of Northern Virginia, no matter the cost. Petersburg was the key. It was a vital rail and supply hub, feeding Richmond and the Confederate war effort. If Petersburg fell, Richmond would follow. Grant believed in relentless pressure. Lee believed in endurance. Outnumbered and undersupplied, Lee knew he couldn't defeat Grant outright, but he could try to hold long enough for the North to lose its will to fight. At Petersburg, both strategies collided. In June 1864, Union assaults failed to take the city quickly, so both sides dug in. Miles of trenches, forts, and earthworks spread across the landscape, foreshadowing World War I decades later. Life in the trenches was miserable. Soldiers endured heat, disease, hunger, and constant shelling. Grant's plan was simple but brutal: cut Lee's supply lines and wore his army down. In July 1864, Union engineers attempted a bold solution. They dug a tunnel beneath the Confederate lines and packed it with explosives. The blast created a massive crater, but poor leadership and confusion ruined the attack. The Confederates recovered and inflicted heavy Union losses. The siege dragged on. As months passed, Grant kept extending his lines, slowly strangling Petersburg. Lee's army grew weaker by the day. Finally, in April 1865, Union forces broke through Confederate defenses. Lee had no choice. He abandoned Petersburg and Richmond. The fall of Petersburg was catastrophic for the Confederacy. Just days later, Lee surrendered to Grant at Appomattox Courthouse on April 9, 1865. The Civil War was effectively over. The Siege of Petersburg wasn't the most famous battle, but it was one of the most decisive. It proved that the war would be won not just by bold charges, but by endurance, logistics, and sheer will. Petersburg broke the Confederacy.